tell us in what ways you feel established, even though you're still building, right? And in what ways you feel like you're still figuring it out.
I think from a personal point of view, feeling established comes from the confidence I have in the role of my family. You know, like we are a really tight unit, you know, between my girls and my husband. And that gives me a place to come home to because it's hard being an entrepreneur. You take a lot of hits. And so at the end of the day, no matter what, I will always be mom. I will always be mama. I will always be a wife, right? And a friend to my husband. And I'll also be a friend to my friends. And so my non-entrepreneurship relationships keep me grounded when everything else is crazy. And so the part that I feel less established in is you're always hustling. You know, like there is a credibility building component to being an entrepreneur in a world where personal brand means a lot. And so while I have personal brand at some level from my education technology days, I moved to parent tech and caregiving tech, and I have to reestablish myself there. And so that's a constant, like, where do you go? Where do you spend your time that's not with your family, that's not working, and just doing that?
Right. So let's end with some tips that you might be able to give our listeners. So I'm honing in on this piece that you mentioned about maintaining those relationships that you sort of brought into being an entrepreneur, being a co-founder. What advice do you have for our listeners on how to maintain those relationships when clearly there are so many calls for your time?
I think it requires a carve out in your schedule, like, you know, friend time every like week and a half at a restaurant. I think that if you don't do that, you slip away, you know, from that.
Yeah. I give all the credit in the world for being able to maintain those relationships because I can't use building an entrepreneurial project as an excuse, right? And so I appreciate that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And it normalizes, I mean, now you can talk about mental health. Like, you know, we have a meeting with one of our stakeholders and we're writing notes about it. And on the bottom, he put, we should talk about mental health. It's really important that this is a topic that we feel comfortable, discussing because as an entrepreneur, this is like always top of mind. And I appreciate all the people that have come out. Like the founder of Bonobos wrote a book about his mental health while being an entrepreneur. I'm like, that is, when you think about 10 years ago, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Right? And now we can actually say, no, I'm doing this for my mental health. And my tip would be just embrace it. You know?
Right? It makes us better. It gives you the fuel you need to keep going.